Welcome back, conscious listeners. I'm so grateful to have you here today tuning in. And I'm so honored and blessed to bring on this guest today. Her name is Hannah Horowitz, and she just has so much to share. And I can't wait to see what happens. Welcome.
Thank you, Jen. It's really, really nice to be here. And we were just saying that we hadn't even really connected that much in a year, just between COVID and all of life. So we're on Zoom right now, seeing each other's faces, and it's really, really sweet. I'm genuinely like thrilled about it.
Oh my gosh. It's crazy to me that so much time can go by and then simultaneously it not feeling like a lot of time at all. Like that to me is blowing my mind. It's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you like in person since last summer. And here we are again to like now this summer.
Yeah.
So like on one hand, it's like, holy crap, like things can change in the blink of an eye and be so different. And then it's like, wait a minute, but why does it also feel like there's no time that's gone by? Even though like so many intense things have happened, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Feels very full circle. And that I'm sure we've both changed and altered a lot. And there's also the fundamental there.
Definitely. Yeah. I know we were mentioning too that like this is a really big time for transition, and not just because it's a new season, but because we're stepping into like new endeavors, and we're really expanding and growing and blossoming and up leveling, and there's no more room for any BS, and we're ready to use our voices and be heard and like be listened to and just have this new lease on life that helps others and that leads by example, and that it's like so refreshing, and then it's a little intimidating too, because it's like, oh my gosh, like can I hold all of this, can I be all of this, do all of this, do all the things. um, so I would love to hear what you're up to and like what I missed this last year, because I've totally missed seeing you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, right before we pressed recording, I had said, like, Jen, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in this conversation. I'm in a lot of movement, transition, just kind of sitting with the like, whoa, of so many things, um, which has been, God, sweet, confusing, painful, joyous, really, really the whole gamut. I think what I'm watching is a lot of shifts in um, identity, right? Around here's how I operate and here's the kind of way that I come off into the world, or here are the things that I value, and really watching that shift a lot and being with the groundlessness of it and being with the unknown. So anyway, I'm kind of just talking, in the ether, but that feels tuned into my moment. But on the very practical level of where I've been this year, I just graduated in May from Naropa's Transpersonal Counseling Program. And you did Transpersonal too, right? You just graduated, I think, a year or two ahead of me. Yeah.
Totally.
Um, so I spent the past year in my internship at Naropa Community Counseling Center, which serves Front Range Sliding Scale and Medicaid folks. And the entire internship was from Zoom. So, it was really right there that we started in the early months of COVID. A lot of learning within that, just of the systems and how to navigate home and life balance, and learning to do this work, in terms of this past year as my first year as quote unquote a therapist, um, was quite the training ground, just on so many levels, both like just the work of therapy, and then also of balancing home life, and then experiencing so many of the really large challenges and griefs and unknowns as our clients. And I I look at myself and I think, wow, Hannah, you did a really, really good job kind of holding that, um, coping well and turning up for clients. And now, as we have this transition out of maybe some of the most intense times of COVID, and also outside of internship, it's kind of opening this whole new field for me of, what do I want to be doing? What are some of the emotions that maybe I also had to repress at that time to function and to turn up well?
Yeah, that's so important to tune in about and to be honest, right, like therapists did not get a break in a sense where when the whole world was falling apart, we were still expected to show up with our A game and to show up with our mental health in check and our emotional health in check. And to be honest, like, was that always possible? I don't think so. And I think you nailed it when you said that, you know, we had to survive it. You know, we've never been through anything like this before. So of course, like, what are our own patterns and our own coping mechanisms and our own, yeah, ways of being in the world that we got to examine such a clear and intense reflection, you know, like I can't think of a year with more unknowns, you know, like I had plans for what I thought my year was going to look like, and my year looked everything but that, you know? So gosh, like to be a beginning therapist at this time, like I don't know what the lesson is in that, but I do know that there is like so much there around, like, you know, just being tested and being like, okay, is this really what you want to do? You know, I'm sure you came across that a lot of like,
and it's nice to feel that the answer is really a resounding yes. Like I feel so deeply grateful. I truly don't know what else I would be doing, which is feels like a big gift to recognize.
yes. Oh, yeah, what have been like your biggest lessons, or just
Yeah.
like your biggest wake up calls, or any like revelations from the last year? I know it's probably hard to like come up with all of them, but yeah, if you had to boil it down to one, or even just like I love that you shared the like the security in your choice, and the like the confirmation of like, yes, this is indeed what I want and what my heart desires, and like I'm willing to sit through, you know, the discomfort and the unease and like feeling it all, to be able to come out on the other end and like have this appreciation for, you know, what you've intended it to be, and now you get to really create that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it feels like there's been many waves and junctures of learning. No doubt there will continue to be many. I feel fortunate that I'm someone who loves inner work so much and has a lot of the privileges and the space to dedicate so much of my time and energy to looking inward and to working with and holding and refining all of my pieces and parts. So I suppose I'll start with the really practical level. I live in a really small home with others, and it was really like loud. And I typically do therapy right from my bedroom. So really learning to suppose having some of those boundaries of like loving my clients and honoring them so much, and also wanting to release that of like, okay, you're so precious. I love the work we're doing, and also like it can't stay in my bedroom in essence. So just figuring out with some of my own practices and boundaries how to delineate that for myself. And I think just a growing confidence, especially in those early months and stages, sitting down at the chair and clicking on Zoom to let a client in and being like, can I do this? Like, am I helpful? And I think that's really precious and really important, because I think we should always be holding that. I always want to sit down with people and be like, I don't know if I can help them, because I think there's a humility within that is very open to the flow. And at the same time, building this confidence of, wow, like maybe I can. And I have some of the tools and skills, and look at how our relationship is growing and building. And maybe some of the growing and building is happening because we're having some harder conversations, or having conflict, or getting over some of the initial bumps of learning one another. So I think so much of my learning, just from my personality structure and my history, has also been, it doesn't just have to be like a-okay and for everyone to be fine and for me to always turn up really good, quote unquote. Like there can be a lot that's very beautiful and humanizing, and also being with my mucky parts, or being really real. Like, how do we model really being a human and sitting with all of the wackiness that entails, and this mystery of being on the planet, and the beauty in that and the unfairness within it. So a lot of my settling in has been like really getting okay with the messiness and feeling excited for that to grow, many of the unknowns. And then I guess on the highest like esoteric level, like, God, I don't know what any of us are doing here. Be that in therapy, on the planet. And we can have our ideas and we can have our goals, but there also seems to me a grand humor in, wow, look at how this therapist and this client have been thrown together and we're playing certain roles here. But ultimately, I, as a therapist, never want to be so attached like to the role that I am in. What is it to just really meet in the like, hey, and the usefulness of roles and the healing power of roles, but also holding roles lightly. Feels like that has a lot to do with how do we support all of the younger parts and our egos to become really healthy, and then also support those in melting in their own time and way. I think that's a lot of what I'm learning right now. And I think that really applies to so many different types of clients. And some people need immediate support of how do we regulate you, or how do we get you to do some of the tasks that you're needing to do, or how do we hold the vast injustices that are happening within your life on the planet, all of that stuff. So it doesn't feel like that work of still melting these parts of ourselves isn't applicable to many different types of, we could say a lot more about that, but it feels like the work of being a human.
More than anything and more than ever, right? Like especially in these chaotic times where, are gaining some sense of like routine and predictability again. But even then, it's like, at least what I'm experiencing lately is just like the unpredictability within what I think my plan is, or where I think my direction's going, or like where I want to go. And then it's like I'm constantly being redirected, or the timing is being altered, or, I turn around and there's the next thing that I thought I was going to be doing and I'm not doing it.
So how do you quote unquote cope with that?
I have been, oh my gosh, lately nature has been the thing. Um, I I went to Netherlands last weekend, and there's this little pull off where there's water and rocks and just nature, and I ended up laying upside down on a rock. Uh, and then this weekend I'm going to be going to this place called Chatfield, and it's like a reservoir type like beach area. But yeah, it's honestly nature for me. And that may sound cliche, but it's also like, no, like the rhythms of nature get to like carry me and hold me. And I think, when I'm like experiencing new things in life, or meeting new people, or just having life show me different lessons, it's like I want to not suppress any of those feelings, even if like patterns in my past have been around suppressing or numbing or tuning out, or um, like it's so easy and also like very normalized to like overly overdo it with suppressing our emotions. Like I feel like our culture is very, very separated from emotions, and very, very separated from, and just compartmentalizing, whether it's like physical tasks or like emotional well-being. There's not usually room for both. um, and so I think that's something we're definitely fostering, and like committing to, you know dedicating ourselves to. But then it's like, how do you exist in a world where that's not the value, even if it is something that you want to value, or are trying to value? Like that's something I sit with a lot, is like if the choices that I'm making, like if I don't fit in for those choices, like am I still able to connect with people who make those choices? Or is it like, you know can I be doing something different simultaneously? But yeah, I think my goal, and obviously I'm not perfect, but like my goal is to like feel everything, even if like I'm so uncomfortable, even if I can't sleep, even if I, need to sleep and just can't, or I have so much energy and like want to do all these projects and have all these things that I want to get done. I feel like, yeah, I feel like community, reaching out to people, nature. Okay. And then the real is like the patience and the trust. Like, so much patience because I have to surrender to what is. And then the trust of like, I have to trust the divine timing, and I have to trust that, like, what is happening is a blessing, right? Or like that full faith in my next best step or my next big thing. And it's hard to sit with that when it's like, I feel like I've been waiting and waiting, or like it just, when things like impatience come up or intolerance comes up or irritability or just feeling the burnout, like I feel like it's so important to like just remind myself of how far I have come, but also like how much further I am capable of going to. Like it's like there's so many things that are coming, and like assure myself that like it's gonna be in motion and on its way, is hard when it's like, when it's still a new pattern and when it's still, not the way I've always lived my life. So yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, right?
Can I tell you an image that just came to mind as you were talking about, trusting what's coming? I was down at the creek the other day, and there is a person who at the Boulder Creek builds these really, really incredible rock sculptures. I don't know if you've seen them, but he takes these large rocks and balances them in ways that are just almost mind-blowing. Like, whoa, however, the physics are understood. So I was sitting there, and he comes to the creek every day to do these. And he pointed out to me this baby nest, robin's nest. I looked at it, and there were these little robins in it, and they were just all there, and they have their mouths open, like just this really, really sweet simplicity of these very new lives with their mouths just open as they're kind of like falling asleep and their mouths open. And then the parents come and just drop these little morsels of food into the baby's mouth, and they're just hanging out there like mouth open, knowing, trusting, hoping whatever it is that food will come as they're nourished and then grow into their next step. But I was even surprised at how struck I was watching this, maybe because there was just such tenderness and preciousness in this new life, or beings going about their natural rhythms as they have for thousands of years, and getting to witness that. But it just really struck me from the perspective of nature knows how to do its thing, and if we can really get quiet and listen, God, how helpful that is.
That is such medicine. I mean, such medicine. Like we're running around trying to get things done, trying to manipulate, trying to control, when in fact it's like so much of what we're really seeking is in the surrender and in the how you mentioned, the quiet, the receiving, the listening, the transforming, like just the growth, the slow growth and change over time. Like the slow growth is where it's at. It's like the most sustainable. And yet it's like we're in a society that's not valuing that at all. And so of course it's gonna be hard and it's gonna be, tricky to wait it out or feel like we're worthy of doing that.
Yeah. What I feel you saying right now, and what I've heard you emphasize in the past, is this kind of kindness and coming towards our own pace. Like, even in a world that is maybe demanding things quickly, or saying you should be growing and changing faster, or you should have this figured out by now, or whatever it might be. What is the kindness in being like, okay, I actually have to really listen here. I have to see what my own pace is. And as people, can we allow that for all of our beloveds? As therapists, can we allow that for our clients without feeling our own agenda, like this should be changed? What is it to really, really acknowledge the flow?
Mm. Yeah, that's so hard to put words to because I think it requires us to be so in the moment, right? Without arriving with judgment, without arriving with, yeah, the plan, the monkey mind. It's like our mind is just trying so hard to keep us alive. And if it
Yeah.
only knew that,
Precious too. Yeah.
if it only knew that it could just relax, and if it only knew that, there's like this teamwork thing happening between like mind body connection. Like if our brain only knew, you know, it's so smart and so helpful, and yet has so much to learn. And I think we're learning how to like allow it to be more willing, and to teach it how to be more mindful. And it comes with practice, I think, and just, yeah, like that spaciousness to like decide, okay, I'm actually going to create my own pace today, and that's going to be enough. And it is, it's exactly what is necessary.
Yeah. 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 And trusting that too, okay, is what happens necessary. And that fine line between, just not allowing anything to happen and also being like, okay, can we move at a pace here? Can we really be gentle with ourselves? I mean, honestly, that feels like so much of the work of being human in terms of quieting us down, having us really be connected to other people. It's like, how kind can I learn to be? And we need models for that, or we need practice, or we need support that's allowed. All of that. It all sounds cliche. And as I've always grew up hearing my dad say, cliches are cliches for a reason. So maybe as we, repeat those cliches enough, they continue to land for us.
Yeah, because sometimes it takes us to hear it a certain way. Sometimes it takes us to hear it from a certain person. Sometimes it takes us to hear it from a certain vibration. We may be in a certain like timeline or cycle or paradigm or vortex, or you name it, like you could hear the same thing 10 times. And for whatever time it clicks, like there's an intuition about that. There's something to that I believe is like a guiding force. And it's like sometimes it does take as long as it takes, right? Like again, without, yeah, the bypassing piece, but just also being aware of like, the divine, like the timing that is aligned, right? Like all of these layers that get to be shed in order to align with the exact things, and with what feels good too, like can we, do we, who we get to. And if we've never done it before, are we willing to do something different? There's so many layers within that of how to approach it, like energetically, just having enough energy, where you're allocating your energy. And it's the balancing act too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I know as we're talking, I just feel really kind of sweet and spacious and feel like I'm kind of getting quiet, when you focus enough on that kind of permission, um, on that kind of learning. I think it really invites us to be a learner of what is it to be here? What does feel right? What doesn't? Learning to communicate that, to expand that, to shift that.
Yeah, have there been any like messages you've received lately, or um, like anything that has come to you just in the midst of this practice of receiving and just getting to know yourself on deeper levels?
Yeah. Oh, I feel like many that are very subtle. Let me go inside for a sec to see what really emerges. Yeah, I think something big I've been working with right now is we're all so influenced by external circumstances. Like, of course, that makes so much sense. Our nervous systems, our minds want a place to land. External circumstances have tremendous impact on so many things about our realities and who we are and the bodies we move in and opportunities available to us. And at the same time, I've been witnessing myself getting a little bent out of shape by some of the external circumstances that when I take a step back, like aren't really that big a deal, but feel like a big affront to the mind or to the system. So something I've really been examining is where are the places that I move away from myself, or where do I really allow my inner world or relationship to self to be dependent upon external circumstances. I don't want to be harsh with myself within that. That can be a learning process, but ultimately, I do not feel available for that in terms of a lifetime. Like that does not feel sustainable insofar as we talk about like the true home in the heart. And I think when we look at a lot of people who have done such incredible things or real masters in their fields, or people that have led movements or attained really high levels of spiritual awareness, it's like that place that is unshakable inside, no matter what is happening externally. And I feel like this year has been a very large deep dive into some of those pieces to really show me some of the places where I'm not, right? And I love being shown where I'm not, because that can be uncomfortable, but can also be like, all right, that is where a lot of the work is, or that is where we get to come inside and be really kind as we learn. But anyway, that's just a big kick that I'm on right now of examining all of the places in which I am thrown off of center by what's happening. And that's okay. That's well and good. That makes sense. But I'm interested in doing it differently.
Hell yes. And also, like, let's create our own rules, right? Like, let's, scribble outside of the lines for a little bit longer than we like think is appropriate or whatever it is, like, let's fall out of line and like, let's be messy and let's learn that like we can survive that too, even if like we've been so conditioned to, yeah, follow the rules or these like like these nonverbal things that we just assume, and I think too, I was thinking about um, the book, The Five Personality Patterns, as you were saying that, of like, he talks about how he studies personality and he talks about all the ways that we classify it and study it. And like, there's the enneagram, and then there's like the human design and all these pieces and parts to the puzzle. But he kind of just like breaks it down of like, these are the five patterns. Like, we move toward, we move away, we move up and out, we move in and down, and then we restrict. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh wow, it's so simple and boiled down. And like, I love that like we can quantify it in a way, because it's like nothing's good or bad, nothing's 100%. Like, we can flow within all the things, and it's just like having that deeper understanding of like how we show up when, and yeah, like it is cool to have mentors and people and role models that can model that to us, that we do look up to, that are like, how you said, they demonstrate such a strong like authenticity in their character.
Yeah, steadfast. That's a word that I've really been sitting with. What is it to be steadfast?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's cool as you're mentioning those different personality types, and how that also being just such a huge pointer of the way. I know for my Enneagram style, for instance, tends to be quite mergy. So really moving towards people. So much of my work is, and that's beautiful. I really appreciate that about my incarnation. But, of moving back a little bit and being like, oh, what is it to be here? Like in my lane, like I don't always have to merge. And then seeing that with other people of, well, what if I actually move closer to other people? Like that's really out of my zone, how it kind of many paths up the mountain in essence.
Yeah, and to like have that just sovereignty and choice and like confidence around the fact that like, oh my gosh, I get to choose my path today, in this moment, in this minute. Like every decision I make gets to be mine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
accountability.
How about for you, Jen? What's really growing in you, or is a decision you feel like gets to be yours right now, however that shows up?
Oh, like I am such a planner. And so when things don't go as planned, well, it's not always true. I'm such a planner in like the work world, but in my life world, I'm very spontaneous. But in my work world, when things don't go as planned, like I definitely feel, um, you know, just deep core wounds of like rejection, abandonment. Um, there's so much there. And then like in my personal life, like for whatever reason, there's more trust around the fact that like things are gonna happen the way they need to. And I'm gonna drive this way today and see where I end up, you know? And so I think what I have to teach myself is like, how can I not be so black and white of like strict and rigid in the workplace and then like spontaneous and carefree in the life, you know, personal life and everything else outside of work. It's like, how can I give myself permission to dance and do both within both, you know, like just having boundaries or just, you know, getting to reflect on like, you know, the seriousness or the playfulness. Because like at the end of the day, life is not that serious, you know, it is, but it isn't. And yeah, I think just like as my patterns come up, um, just how I go from there in each circumstance. So like if something doesn't go as planned or if plans change or whatever, it's like, can I look at that one encounter and say, okay, like is my response going to be different this time, or let's try something different because you know maybe there is something here. um, and of course like being triggered is not a bad thing. It just gets to help you grow and it gets to like show you where you still have shadow to integrate and also where you can be propelled into the future. um, and so I think yeah, like it stems from those roots, and like similar to how you said, it may not be like that, like that emotional charge may not be accurate to what's occurring. It's just my own residue of past experiences or um, you know, the pain or the hurt or the tragedy. And so getting to slowly show myself, wait a second, that past event is not occurring right now. Wait a second, that past trigger, oh my gosh, I can tolerate that a little different today. And okay, maybe tomorrow I won't, but then maybe the next day I will a little bit more. And just like tracking it for myself of, well, isn't that interesting that that's how I responded today? And just like getting to bring in humor and also, but also in a way, yeah, that's probably coping, but also in a way that's like observant. Like I get to be the observer of myself and I get to like, you know, love those parts of myself even harder because they need more nurturing and they need more support, which is why they're like coming out, you know, and yeah, having the courage to lean into it. And then if it's a day where I don't feel like it, then having the courage another day to like come back to it and take note on it and see what simmers. Cause yeah, there is a lot there
Mm-hmm.
in terms of going for it, you know, um, like to not self-sabotage and to just like allow relationship to work its way out.
Yeah. Yeah. We're such funny beings in the sense of having so many parts of ourselves online all the time. I was just, speaking with my teacher around, the parts of myself that are really kind of misprocessing, and then the parts that are really aware of that and are parenting the parts that are young and misprocessing. So it feels like it's such a dance of learning all of that and holding them all in the fold, as you were speaking to.
Oh, and that metaphor always, like, just always makes me think about and reminds me of how we all are connected. You know, as isolated and alone as we could feel or may feel at times, it's like we're all online at the same time. Like, we're all here. We all have a beating in our hearts, like, simultaneously. You know, like, we're all alive right now.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? You know,
Yeah.
like,
Mm.
it's such a trip.
That feels like a good question to sit with throughout the day. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do with it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, Hannah, this has been such a treat. I'm so, so grateful that we got to have this conversation today.
Yeah, so lovely. Thank you. I feel very honored to be asked, and I'm excited for your podcast and excited for the many people that will get to listen and learn.
Yes. And how can people find out more about you if they want to check out your offerings or just want to get to be in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, I have zero social media. I don't have a website. I suppose I should be building all of that soon, but I've just kind of been in a cocoon. But my email is Hannah, the palindrome way, HANNAH, at Hannah Horowitz, spelled HOROWITZ.com. And if anyone feels, compelled to send a little message, I would be so happy to read it and to engage. And I'm in a lot of learning right now, but I am starting private practice with psychotherapy and with coaching clients. So excited to see what comes and emerges from that.
So beautiful. Yeah, I can't wait to see all the lives you're going to touch and all the lives that you will be moved by.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels very important and a good essence to end. I'm constantly moved by lives. It's such an exchange. Yeah.
Well, big love to you, Hannah. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful.
Likewise, Jen. Thank you.
Yes, and take good care, everyone.